Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back once again to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. How are you all doing out there? It's been a crazy few weeks. Now, I am 7 to 10 days ahead when I record these episodes, so I'm always conscious that I can't reveal too much about anything that I might see in the news because it'll be out of date by the time you all listen. But we've had Reddit communities taking on the stock market, everybody getting excited about crypto again. There's just so much going on. The world order has almost changed overnight. And the traditional IT organisation is under more pressure and scrutiny than ever before. And in addition to ensuring security, there's also a strong argument in favour of modernising enterprise infrastructure that is trusted by leading managed service providers. And patent-pending enterprise-grade Agentless Zero Trust Isolation platform addresses some of the fundamental security and network challenges faced by organisations today. And Ritesh, the CEO at Airgap, has been on Tech Talks Daily before and talked about Airgap's core capabilities, the roadmap and their vision, etc. But today I invited him back onto the podcast to talk about the new ransomware attacks that he's seeing and trends around that. Also, Airgap's customer adoption update around anything that he's seeing there. And also, what is new in the ransomware kill switch? Got a lot to talk about, but enough of me rambling. Let's get Ritesh back onto the podcast right now. So a massive warm welcome back to the show, Ritesh. But for anyone that missed our first conversation, can you remind the listeners with a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, Neil. My name is Ritesh Agarwal. I'm the CEO, founder of Airgap. Love my job. Very excited about where Airgap is going.
Excellent. And we did last speak, I think it was back in October. So I've got to ask, what's been keeping you busy since we last spoke?
Lots of things, Neil. I'm the founder of a young company, and you can imagine entrepreneurs are extremely busy, and so am I. But in terms of the busyness, we've been growing really, really fast. It's been an exciting journey, like I said before. Our customer list is growing. We're adding a lot of features in our product. And of course, we're increasing the team strength. We've pretty much doubled since the last time we spoke. And we expect to double by the end of the quarter again. So it'll be 4 times what we were by the end of the quarter.
And I'm curious, have you seen customer adoption change over the last few months? Has the pandemic changed anything? Has it made your world easier or harder? What have been the most significant changes?
Lots of them. On a personal front, it's a much harder world. I'm pretty much confined to my house. We have taken this very seriously. We go out only on a limited basis to do groceries or if something urgent needs to be addressed. But on a business front, things have done well because, this pandemic has increased the amount of cyber attacks and also increased the attack surface. People are working from home often enough nowadays, pretty much all the time. And there is not a lot of security gear at home, and it increases the risk posture for a typical enterprise. Airgap is in the business of providing security for sort of both the problems, and that's what is keeping us busy as well.
We are at the beginning of a new year and lots of people talking about the trends ahead. And from a cybersecurity point of view, are there any ransomware attack trends that you're noticing? Anything different from usual?
Yeah, lots of new studies came out, and it turns out that the amount of ransomware is not just growing, but it's becoming more potent. And let me sort of clarify that a little bit. There used to be a time when ransomware was essentially more of a spray or a pray technique by the bad actors. They would go ahead and unleash general purpose ransomware like Emotet or Ryuk or something like that. And that would go ahead and infect the victims essentially. And it would, for the most part, encrypt the files, and then a ransom would be demanded of the victim. These days, the bad actors are taking their time to understand larger businesses and their security posture, and then creating a targeted attack against these businesses, and not only just encrypting the files, but stealing the data and then threatening to release the data to public unless the ransomware is paid. Now, that creates a very interesting dynamic, because now if you are the targeted business, then there is very little you can do to escape that attack. And then stolen data, if released to public domain, could have implications both in terms of reputation and fines from appropriate agencies. So we are seeing more of that. And of course, the average ransom demand has quadrupled in the last couple of years. All of this leading to massive trouble for majority of the enterprises that get impacted.
And can you tell me a little bit more about what's new in the ransomware kill switch? Because there seems to be more and more news around that at the moment. I just wonder if, for people outside of the industry that have possibly not heard of that, can you expand on that for me?
Absolutely. It's one of the most exciting offerings we have, Neil. As the name suggests, ransomware kill switch. And I promise you, this is not a architecture. This is actual product, and it works exactly like the name suggests. So let me tell you what happens for the most part is, despite all the protection and preparation a typical enterprise organization would make, they do get hit with ransomware occasionally. And once they do, there's very little that they can do. I talk to the CIOs and CISOs all the time, and I ask them, what if you get impacted with ransomware right about now? What would you do? And I see visual discomfort if we are on a Zoom call, or I can hear in their voice a little bit of pain, saying, "Why did you even bother asking me this question? Because it's going to make me uncomfortable." Nobody has a good answer. Often enough, people tell me that they will shut down the network, and I say, "Look, thank God you're not operating a healthcare facility, or you're operating a manufacturing facility. These are not your options to shut down the entire network. People's lives could be at stake. Certainly, business is at stake. Business continuity is extremely important for any kind of business out there. So shutting down networks is not the best idea." Airgap ransomware kill switch, on the other hand, provides that instant sort of response to the propagation of ransomware. It stops the propagation of ransomware pretty much instantly. And that's the beauty of Airgap ransomware kill switch. And it does it without shutting down your network, without impacting the business productivity. Your business continues to grow as it should and continues to operate as it should. You are surgically eliminating certain connectivity that could result in sort of increased propagation of ransomware, or that could cause loss of your business data. That's what ransomware kill switch is all about. Sorry, it was a long-winded answer, but I wanted to make sure that you and our audience understand what is it all about.
No, not at all. I love that. And I think businesses all over the world now are grappling with so many different cybersecurity risks, especially as now people are working from their own homes, which introduces a whole set of other problems. But is there anything that keeps you up at night or concerns you at the moment, or anything that concerns your customers and they're coming to you and asking for your help with?
Well, that's an interesting question you asked, Neil. Personally speaking, I have a teenager at home, so that obviously is something that keeps me at home. And some of those audiences who have had teenagers probably understand what I mean. And those who are yet to have kids, be warned, that will keep you up at night at times. On the business or professional front, lots of stuff. We're growing very, very fast, Neil. And of course, any business that's growing as quickly as we are, there'd be some teething trouble, and we are having the same. The team is growing faster than what is generally considered normal. The customer base is growing faster as well. So we're keeping up with all of those. That keeps me up. In terms of customers, I can tell you, I genuinely care. I do. I would not have been able to start a company, and I would advise this to other entrepreneurs who may be on the call as well, or listening to this podcast. You cannot start a business and survive if you genuinely don't care about customers. It's a harder journey, and you will give up if you're motivated only by the financial gain or something else. You really have to care, and I do. So when I see businesses getting impacted with ransomware, I really feel for it, and I really want to help them out. So anybody who's listening to this podcast and is sort of talking to customers or is affected with ransomware, please reach out to us. I would help you as much as I can.
And what are your biggest challenges, would you say, right now?
We've come a long way, Neil. We spent last 2 years building the product. We've had a dozen or so customers that have been participating in the design process. We call them design partners. They've been helping us shape the product. Everything that we've built so far, including the ransomware kill switch, is a direct result of the feedback that we got from our customers. So that's what is we have done. Our challenge going forward is we want to take this business into mainstream. We want to reach out to a broader set of customers now. I think the product is ready. It's been well tested. It's been well deployed in dozens of locations. And we think we want to take it to the next level now. And we're waiting to reach out to every one of those customers who've been impacted with ransomware or one who's concerned about ransomware.
Excellent. And like you say, life is a challenge at the moment. You're working from home, confined to your house, like so many people listening all over the world. And a lot of things that we can all struggle with, of course, is the motivation to get up and get back into our routine and start solving those problems of our customers. So I've got to ask, what makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning?
Everything. I mean, I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. Preparing for this call. And every day there is something. I'm interviewing somebody in Asia, for example. Sometimes there is a major customer call earlier in the morning, a customer based out of Europe, a customer based out of Asia. I'm excited about all of those conversations, including this one. And I love jumping out of the bed and taking care of business and talking to customers and talking to experts like yourself.
So Airgap is a zero trust isolation platform that confines ransomware to a single device that helps users put an end to threat propagation and protect their infrastructure in minutes, not months. But for people that are hearing about Airgap for the first time, what would you say makes you different from other solutions out there?
Absolutely, Neil. You said it right. Airgap is a zero trust isolation platform that is designed to instantly stop the propagation of any cyber threat inside your organization. And the approach that Airgap takes is fundamentally different than everything else that people may have seen in the market. See, there are lots of solutions that are designed to protect the threat from getting inside your organization. We call it perimeter protection solution. And some of these solutions are also designed to understand the pattern of ransomware and then, based on the pattern, detect that something bad is coming in and then stop that from coming into the organization. Now, these are great solutions and I think they're necessary. However, what we've seen is despite the best attempt, the ransomware would get into your organization. And that's where Airgap comes into the play. We would protect your organization even if the ransomware has penetrated the perimeter of your organization. And the way we do that is fundamentally different than everybody else. We shut down all of the unauthorized lateral communication inside your organization. So imagine that you're running a large organization, and despite your investment in various security solutions, you got penetrated with ransomware, and you now get to know that there is ransomware inside the organization. If you had Airgap, you would know that that ransomware will not propagate beyond one impacted device. And that's a major relief. Nobody demands a huge ransom because they have been able to penetrate one device, and nobody pays a huge ransom because they had one device impacted. And that's what Airgap is going to be able to do for you. And that's different than everything else that you have seen so far.
Excellent. And as somebody that's working right in the heart of the industry, I'm sure you have many conversations with customers and the kind of problems that they're having, and also people that will ask you what you do and engage you in a conversation. So for those people and for people that are listening, let's say, imagine you're sat next to or you're socially distanced and sat close to them on a busy train or plane, and they ask you what you do. What kind of tips would you offer about ransomware or anything that you do?
Absolutely. I think my first tip is going to be realization that ransomware is reality and it's going to hit you once in a while. What is happening is a new study just came out from Cybersecurity Ventures that suggested that a new business is going to be impacted with ransomware every 11 seconds. So by the time we finish this conversation, probably 200 businesses would have been impacted by ransomware. This is like a game of Russian roulette. It's firing every 11 seconds, and someday you're going to be stuck with a bullet in the chamber. So be prepared for that. Second is there is a little bit of education required for your employees, for your executives, for everybody involved in the organization in terms of cyber awareness. So that is, I think, lagging a lot. Industry is digitizing faster than they're educating folks on the risk of digitization, a la ransomware or cyber threat, essentially. Last thing I would say is realize that you will be impacted and walk backwards. Think if you're impacted, what would you do? I think most of the people are totally focused on, I'm going to protect myself so hard that I cannot be impacted. And in a way, forget to pay attention to the fact that what if all my protection fails, then what? And that's what I would like customers to think about, and then tell them that's what Airgap does. Is if all your defenses were to fail, then Airgap is your last resort, and be prepared for that as well.
Well, I think it's a beautiful moment to end on. But before I do let you go, could you just remind everyone listening where they can find Airgap online, and equally contact your team if they've got any other questions about anything we talked about today?
Absolutely. One thing that I'm very eager to do is talk to audiences and both kinds, those who love our solution and those who have critical feedback. I would love to hear from them straight, directly, and they can contact me at my personal email address, which is ritesh@airgap.io, RITESH@airgap.io. My team can be reached at info@airgap.io. We have our phone numbers listed at website airgap.io. Many times I'm the one answering that call. So feel free to give us a call. If it's landing on my phone at a reasonable time, then I would be the one answering that call. So one way or another, please contact us. I love to hear from you, and I'd love to engage in a very meaningful and positive conversation.
Well, a huge thank you, as always, for coming on the podcast. So much I love about what you do, from the story behind the company and also the belief that traditional enterprise network and security infrastructure has almost run its course now. It is 3+ decades old, and architecture isn't the way forward for the cloud generation, but together we can help enterprises modernize their network for a simple and secure infrastructure and delivered from the cloud. So much cool stuff you're doing. I'd love to get you back on again towards the end of the year and see if there's any other trends that you're noticing. But more than anything, just thanks for joining me again today, Ritesh.
Thanks for having me, Neil. It's always a pleasure to be on this podcast. Love what you do as well.
It's always a pleasure to have Ritesh on the show. An absolute gentleman. I love talking about ransomware attack trends, news around ransomware kill switches, and of course their Zero Trust Isolation platform. Really is worth checking out if you do have a few minutes. As always, I'll have the links on the blog post that will accompany this podcast episode. But Zero Trust is a big buzzword right now, and every organisation within every industry are having to deal with the effects of ransomware or prepare for it. So whatever industry you work in, I'd love to hear how you're being more proactive than reactive with your cybersecurity and ransomware defences. So please, open invitation to everyone. You're more than welcome to come on this podcast or just ask me a question or share an opinion, whatever it is. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But I've taken up far too much of your time already. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.